Hello and welcome to Firearm Freedom. This is going to be another First Impressions video. In today's First Impressions video, we are taking a look at this Para-Ordnance Black Ops. And before we get this video started, I wanted to give a quick shout out to this video's sponsor, which is going to be Locks & Company. This is one that I am super excited about, and this is actually the first channel sponsor that I've had that is not necessarily gun related. They make a wide variety of grooming products for primarily men, but also women as well. I've actually been using this stuff now for about a year, which is why I'm so excited about the sponsorship. Before I partnered with Locks & Company, I have been using their War Daddy wax as my daily pomade in my hair, and I've had absolutely no complaints about it at all. The hold is unbelievable. Even if it's freaking raining outside, I've had that stuff hold without issue. And better yet, it's made of natural ingredients, including beeswax and a few other things. They also have body wash, natural deodorants, awesome swag, and better yet, if you use the code FirearmFreedom10 at checkout, it does a few different things. Not only will you get 10% off of your order, but it lets Locks & Company know that you found their products through this ad in this video, so it really does go to helping support the channel. And guys, I seriously appreciate it. Para-Ordnance. I should really preface this by saying this is not necessarily a Para-Ordnance. Para-Ordnance actually switched to Para-USA, and then quickly after switched to a terminal illness that was Remington taking over the business and ultimately destroying what was once an incredible 1911 company. And they were making 1911s in a few other countries and came into the United States, and then they met their downfall. This video, you guys might notice, is in a different location to our normal tabletop. It's raining a good bit here today in Pennsylvania, and where I normally film my tabletops, there's actually a sump pump, and when it's raining like this, it sounds like a little stream in the background. So we're switching it up. I do apologize if there is any sort of an echo. I'm doing my best here, so I appreciate you guys still clicking on the video and watching it. I recently picked up this Para-USA Black Ops 1911 in the used case at the gun shop that I work at. And I am not gonna lie to you guys, I was really never a huge fan of Para-Ordnance or Para-USA because the only Paras that I was able to get my hands on was the Para-Ordnance pistols that Remington was producing, and they were pretty bad. I remember seeing a lot of different QC issues with those guns. We got this in the used case at the shop at work, and I started to pick it up and handle it, and holy crap, the slide on this gun, you got it, the camera does not do it justice. I mean, this slide feels like glass. So that was the first thing that I realized when I picked it up. And I remember we probably had like 6 other individuals pick this gun up as far as customers in the case the first week that it was in there, all interested in buying it just because of how the gun felt in the case. I mean, it felt phenomenal. There's no movement at all in the slide. The fit and finish is phenomenal. And this, I believe, is a pre-Remington Para-USA. Now, this probably was made, given the box that we saw this in and the price tag that we saw on it was actually from a price tag at a shop I used to work at in the area, so I kind of like could gauge when that was around. And I'm thinking it was around like 2011, 2010-ish. This gun was made or at least purchased. Now, I can't be 100% sure, of course, so with full disclosure, this could, of course, be a early Remington Para-USA combination. But if it is, you still have the Para quality of this 1911 coming forward in just the overall fit and finish. I was very, very impressed with it. Now, the Black Ops model for Para-Ordnance was used for a very long time as essentially like the go-to 1911 for an out-of-box, ready-to-go, more tactical 1911 with a rail on the bottom. Para-Ordnance was really big in the 3-gun competition circuits all over the world in their double-stacked Para-Ordnance variations, and they were really kind of the ones that were forming the new frontier of double-stacked 1911s. Really, the original 2011 design, you could say, kind of came from Para-Ordnance. But as they moved into the United States, you started to see models like the Black Ops here, and you were seeing these premium 1911s start to break into the tactical world as well. Now, the Black Ops is going to have their match-grade barrel. It's going to have an ambidextrous safety selector there. It's going to have a skeletonized hammer. We have an adjustable skeletonized trigger. It does also have an accessory rail on the bottom. Now, I am running a TLR1 HL on this, and throughout the duration of the B-roll that you guys are going to see with this pistol, the holster that I was running was the QVO secondary holster, and I was running that on a Safariland mid-ride on my battle belt. And by the way, there will be a complete video on that secondary holster that I got from QVO. The guys over there are incredible. Roger is such a good dude, and I really appreciate their support. But I'm going to be doing a full review of that holster. I just wanted to mention it because I know a lot of you guys are probably going to be curious, but the holster is phenomenal, and it fits this Para-Ordnance Black Ops incredibly well with the TLR1. I will say that if you were looking for an aesthetic recommendation, an X300 would probably be the way to go because it's just going to fit perfectly flush against that 5-inch barrel. And I really like outfitting the guns that I have with multiple lights and not having to switch lights from gun to gun. And if I was going to get a holster, I knew that it would just be more cost effective for me to go with the TLR1 HL. So that's exactly what I did here. And the TLR1 HL on here really doesn't look terrible, but it is just a little bit short there, and I would prefer it to be a little bit longer. This also has some Trijicon 3-dot night sights, which is really nice to have out of box. The tritium is about there. It's definitely getting at the end of its life, which would also indicate that 10 to 12-year-old age on the gun. Now, as you guys know, a favorite of mine is to use a little bit of Talon grip tape on the front strap here, and that really does change the shootability of the gun. Wilson Combat does offer a small sliver of essentially checkering that squeezes into the front and goes underneath the grips, so that's an option I might go to on some of these guns in the future. But for right now, for literally no money at all, because I had a little piece of this Talon grip tape just lying around in a junk drawer, this works really well at the range and completely changes the shootability of the pistol. Getting into the shootability, that's where unfortunately I was coming up a little bit short on how much I love this gun. So before I got it to the range, I was messing around with it daily while it was on layaway at the shop, and I was just so excited about the gun. I mean, just every part of it, from the fit and finish, from the ambidextrous safeties to the slide moving like glass, I was excited about this 1911. And I knew that the early Para-Ordnance guns were phenomenal. I've always heard really, really good stuff about them. So I was very excited to get it to the range. The previous person that sold this gun into the shop said that they shot about 50 rounds through it. They did not shoot that much at all. And really, with the internal wear that's on the gun, I would say that's relatively accurate. I do have to give a huge shout out to a very good friend of mine and a supporter of the channel for providing the 45 ACP ammunition for this review. Spencer, shout out to you, buddy. Without your ammunition, this review just would not have happened anywhere near as quickly as it did. Just with how expensive ammunition is nowadays, it was incredibly helpful. So we shot 200 rounds of 45 ball through this. The primary issues that you guys are going to be seeing that we had were failures to feed. There were quite a few failures to feed, so much so that I actually lost count. I know that many of you probably just saw my Kimber review that I just dropped, a first impressions video, and that 1911 did not fare too well either, and it looks like the fail train for 1911s is going to continue with this early Para-Ordnance. You guys might hear the tone in my voice that I'm not as salty about the Para, and I think that's just because, I don't know, there's more of a cool factor for me. With Kimber, I had a bad taste in my mouth going into it, so I really wasn't that excited. With the Para, I really was, and because it was all failures to feed, it leads me to believe that maybe the gun is breaking in a little bit. I don't know. That's probably a huge cope because I want this gun to work well, but it also could just, not be running that great. If you're looking at the internals of the gun, which is going to be very, very difficult to tell on the camera here, it does have a polished up feed ramp. Now, I don't know if the previous owner, because this was used, went in there and polished up the feed ramp at all. I really don't think so, because there's not any other parts on this gun that are polished that you would typically see bubbled up and polished. So I'm not sure, and it does look like just a little bit of usual wear and tear. So it doesn't really scream to me that this was polished by somebody after the factory. But it does have a very, very sharp feed ramp, and that's what you do see on a lot of different 1911s, but I do worry that in this case, that is what's causing all the failures to feed. And at first, I thought, well, it must be magazine related. So I had a little pile, and every time I got a failure to feed, I would throw that magazine in the pile. And I was very disappointed when I went to look over at the pile and I had a freaking magazine from like every single manufacturer that makes 1911 magazines in the pile. So I don't know that it was a magazine problem. It happened across the board, whether it was the factory Para-Ordnance magazines, which are actually really good magazines, or the Metgar mags that I was running. I was also running a bunch of different Wilson Combat mags. I was running some Kimber magazines, some Springfield magazines, other GI magazines, and all of them had the failure to feed issues. Also, I have to review the footage to be 100% sure, but I don't know that the failures to feed happen at any specific point in the magazine either. So that's also really disappointing. Usually, if it's just the first round or if it's another specific round in the magazine, you might be able to pinpoint the problem a little bit easier. But in this case, it kind of happened all over the place, which again would indicate to me that the gun is either just breaking in still, if it's accurate that it only had 50 rounds through it, or it just has a sharp feed ramp and you're just going to experience some failures to feed with this particular 1911. And that can sometimes be the case, unfortunately, with 1911s. I love these guns. I have a lot of them. I keep them in a display case at the house. I dig collecting 1911s. And quite frankly, I find that a lot of the time, if you want a just die-hard, eat anything you put in it 1911, you're probably going to be looking at one of the more affordable 1911s that are on the market. All of my Turkish 45 1911s work incredibly well. All of my Springfield 1911s work incredibly well. And those are in like the $700 price point half the time. And I find that the more salty, the more expensive you go in the 1911s, the more finicky they're going to be, the more failures to feed you're going to have, the more issues you're going to have as the gun gets dirty at the range, or magazine finickiness. There's a lot of those things that start to happen with a 1911 as the tolerances get tighter and all of those things. When somebody breaks out a brand new Nighthawk in the case and they're feeling how smooth it is, it feels incredible, and they're very accurate guns. But people forget the fact that these guns were originally designed to kind of have a little bit of slop to them, a little bit of movement, and that allowed them to work in a lot of adverse conditions. And that's exactly why you'll see just standard mil-spec 1911s killing it at the range. And as you go to these really nice match-grade guns, they start to have issues. In the back of my mind, I was worried that this gun was going to have issues because of how smooth that slide was. And unfortunately, it does appear that that's going to be the case. How did the gun shoot when it was running reliably and I was not having failures to feed? This is also why I'm a little less salty about this gun than I was with the Kimber. This was incredible to shoot, and just everything as far as shootability goes. The trigger is phenomenal. I have absolutely no issues there, and this is surprisingly a Series 80, a more traditional Series 80 gun, and still the trigger is not bad at all. You got a little bit of take up there, crisp wall, and then your reset right there brings you out to the wall, little bit of creep, and your brake again. And you're going to have a little bit of that creep on a Series 80. It happens. But it is still a very, very nice 1911 trigger. And again, this gun is sprung properly. It has a good recoil spring in it. And with that nice sandpaper texturing up in the front, it really grabs onto your hand and it just shoots incredibly well. Accuracy was just fine. It was about the same as all my other 1911s, as they're very accurate guns. And I do think that running the weapon light up here in the front really helped with the overall weight of the gun, so it just added to the push of recoil that 1911s are going to have. So as far as shootability, it was incredible. Moving forward, what am I going to do with this gun? I'm going to continue to shoot it. I'm not super salty about the gun. Fit and finish is excellent, and you just kind of know getting into a higher end or a nicely fit 1911 that you're probably going to have issues. I don't know. These 1911s for me are not defensive guns in any way, so I don't necessarily care that I'm having a lot of failures to feed issues. I got this gun at a very, very good price. I think it was around 500 bucks, and these guns new went for about 900 or even 1200 back in the day. So I'm not upset about that price point at all, and that's another reason I'm not salty about the gun having some failure to feed issues. I think this is a great value 1911 for what I got it for, and I'm still very, very happy with it overall. If you guys have any other questions about this 1911, throw them down in the comment section below. That is going to wrap this video up. While you're down there in the comment section, head up to that description, check out those links to support the channel. And as always, stay tuned for more great videos coming soon.